Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all had a good new year with your family. I do apologise for not posting in a while, but today what I wanted to do is bring you a tutorial video and show you how you can make your own personalised GIFs using 3D printing and then a technique within 3D printing called HueForge. So one of the GIFs that I made was a wedding ring holder for my friend George and Paige's wedding. They've got little hooks here and here that I 3D modelled onto it. And here's an image of them which I generated and I printed using the HueForge kind of technique to make a very thin print, and then I added it to my 3D model which I made. So I'm going to show you guys how you can do that as well. Most of the applications I use in this video are free. I think HueForge at the time of recording this has an entry-level payment of £20 if you're not going to use it for commercial use. So again, it's really cheap as long as you have access to the equipment, and that's a one-off payment, by the way. So as long as you have access to the equipment, you should be fine to replicate this. If by the end of the video, you do learn something and you feel like this video was helpful, I would appreciate if you, left me a comment, told me anything you could, anything you want to either design yourself or anything that you think I could improve on. And if, I'd appreciate it if you could like, and if you find something useful, if you want to subscribe, again, that's entirely up to you. So let's get into the video. Okay guys, so just a quick look again at the GIF that I made. So it consists of mainly two sections. You've got the HueForge section on its own and then the main 3D printed body. And on each side of the tree, you've got the little hooks to hold the wedding rings for Paige and George. So this particular GIF was printed using PLA carbon fibre from QD-Tech. And here's a little shot of it near the window, which I thought looked quite nice. So let's now take a look how this product was actually made. And there's also a quick timestamp here just in case you do watch the video and you do want to come back to certain sections that you find relevant for yourself. Now if you quickly want to pause the video, these are the applications you're going to need. Like I say, most of them are free and we're going to go through it step by step. So let's go. So one of the first things you're going to do is open ChatGPT and you're going to enter a prompt like this using the reference photos that you've decided to create a stencil image. And you're going to want to create a blank folder on your desktop just to store the images and files as we continue. I then went back to ChatGPT and asked it to generate me a stencil image of a romantic tree. Then save this like the other image to your blank folder that you just created. We are then going to go to Google and type in free SVG converter. And I just used this top website for the one I wanted. Next, all we need to do is upload one of the two files that we just saved into our blank folder. And for the start, I started with the tree for this one, and it will convert it from a PNG image into an SVG image. And all you do is save this back into your blank folder and it should look like this. Now just do the exact same thing you did with the other image, upload it, and save it, download it and save it as an SVG file to your folder. So guys, throughout the video I'm just going to do a quick recap, so just in case you do feel like I'm going too quick and you get stuck, you can pause these sections and hopefully you're up to date by that point. So next guys, you're going to go to Google, you're going to type in Tinkercad, which is a 3D modeling software that's really good because you can use it within your desktop, within your browser. You don't have to download anything and you just need to sign up, which is free to do so. So guys, once you've signed in, your work plane should look like this. You're going to want to go to the snap grid section and change it to 0.1 millimeters because it makes it more precise. And then you go to the settings and change your width and length to the same size as what your print bed is of your 3D printer. So it helps you with the accuracy of visualizing what it's going to look like. So what you're going to want to do now is import the SVG file that you created earlier, just one at a time for now. So I'm going to start with George and Paige, and then I changed the dimensions just to make it a bit smaller because it will import way too big. So just change that to whatever you want, just to kind of have it smaller. And then you can always change the size later. So guys, don't worry about the fact I've got two of these, it's just for the sake of the tutorial, but when you import it, it should look like this. It will have all these little dots in the middle because it's not properly filled, and you can adjust the height to whatever you want later, but essentially your image should look like this, roughly like this anyway. You then go to the shape column on the side and you need to go to fill mode and you fill it as a silhouette. So this will do most of the infill of your 3D model for you. But as you can see that Paige filled in, but George's character didn't fill in, and so We're just going to tweak that now to correct this, and once you've done, it should look like this. So I'm going to show now in reverse order how I kind of fix this problem. So again, don't worry about this too much. Once I've moved it to the side, again, this is what our image looked like once we filled it with the silhouette mode. So Tinkercad has this tool that we can use to fix this. It's called the sketch tool, and it is, really good. It's really easy to use. Just to very quickly show you about it, you can select different points on your plane, and when you're finally ready to finish, you connect the points and it will create a 3D model based on what points you've got. You can adjust different sections of these points and curve them or do whatever. So if there's any problems that you need to fix with it, or if there's any kind of different designs you want to go for, as you can see, it's very versatile. So we're going to use this to fix our image here. So all I did to fix the model here is I used that same tool. I zoomed very far in and I selected the little points around the edge of George here in the sections that didn't fill in properly, and clicked finish sketch. So once you finish your sketch, you want to adjust the height of the section of the sketch you made to be the same height as the model that you're trying to group it with. And you select both of the objects and you group them together, and that's how you fill the section. The reason I said I put a note there saying do it 0.1 millimeters higher is because for my particular model here, when I put them both at the same height, it created little imperfections. So I'm going to show you that. So here I made this one 5 millimeters to match the height of page, which is also 5 millimeters. But when I grouped them together, what I noticed is that it had little imperfections along the outside of George's silhouette. So to fix that, all I needed to do is ungroup them again and change George's section to be 5.1 millimeters rather than 5 millimeters, and that seemed to fix the problem. Okay guys, so we're going to do a quick recap again, so feel free to pause the video at this point. I know it can get a bit overwhelming, so hopefully these steps will be clear once you pause the video and you can follow it step by step, okay? So if you've managed up until this point, we're going to continue. So now we've created the main body, we're going to import our second SVG image. So you can just put the other one off to the side, outside of your work plane. And again, I adjusted the dimensions just to make it not so big when it imported, but you can change the size of it to whatever you want it to be. When you do want to resize your image and you take your cursor to the bottom right, you want to hold down the shift on your keyboard and it resizes the image proportionately. But if you don't hold down shift, it might throw off the dimensions of your image. So I'm going to show you now, again, sorry, in reverse order, but I'm going to show you how I grouped these two images we made together so far. So, please don't worry if it looks confusing. I'm going to break it down step by step. And the first thing we're going to focus on is the actual stand, which holds Paige and George's silhouette up. So all I did to create the stand is I used the same tool we used earlier, which is the sketch tool. I zoomed all the way into the bottom section of the silhouette, and I drew points to connect their feet together and a flat surface. So as you can see by my dots here, I drew around the feet, and then I connected the dots across the little gap, and I just drew down a little bit and created a flat surface and click finish sketch. All you'll need to do then is, for your own image, because it will look different to mine, is you change the height of your stand to the same height, pretty much the same height as the rest of the 3D model. And then simply group your objects together to create one object as it's seen in this image here. Okay, so I know it looks like there's a lot going off on the screen and it might be a bit confusing, but for now, just please ignore the tree, ignore this blank box and these little sections because it will make sense later. All we've really done so far is we've created our main silhouette, which is on this image, Paige and George. We've created the stand using the sketch tool, which is what I just shown you before, connecting the points to the bottom of their feet. So then when we group them together, the silhouette has something to stand on. And then now we're going to show you how to connect the tree we had earlier to the main body of our image, okay? Okay, so now we've created our stand and our silhouette. We want to ignore that for now. We want to focus on our tree. Essentially, if I group these two images together right now, what's going to happen is, as you can see from the bottom of the tree, it will poke out the side of George and Paige's silhouette. So you want to select the box tool and make sure that it is marked as whole. and we want to basically crop the bottom of this tree off. So you do that by simply dragging the box over the section of the bit you want to crop, and you make sure that it is, the section you want to crop is within the box. You select both objects and you just group them together like so. And what this will do is it will essentially chop off any part that is within that box, within the whole box. And as you can see, it's done it here. So now when I overlap them, you can see it looks much nicer. So when I ungroup them, as you can see, if we didn't chop off this bottom section, it will be sticking out the side of our silhouette. So once I cropped the bottom of the tree, I just dragged it over the top of Paige and George's silhouette. You had to make sure the bottom of the tree, as you can see there, is nicely embedded into the main part of your silhouette, because you have to consider that when we group these two, or the final 3D model together, we want to make sure when it prints, there's not any sections poking out, or I didn't want it in between, where Paige and George's heads are. So your main final thing, once you group it all together, should look relatively like this. So again guys, just because of the way I recorded this video, it could get a little confusing, because I recorded it in sections a little bit. So I'm doing again a quick recap here. Feel free to pause the video at this point and hopefully this will make a bit more sense to you. And if it does, we're going to move on to the next section. And so all we've really done here is we've connected, we've taken our two SVG images. For one of them we had to fill in the silhouette and had to make some tweaks ourselves. And for the other one we just had to crop off the bottom of the tree. And then we created a stand just to hold our 3D model nice and steady. So for the most part the image is, or the 3D model is done. However, what I noticed is when I printed, you had all these little sections here, which are essentially not connected to the main part of the tree. So when I did 3D print the tree for the first time, when I took it off the print bed, there were all these little sections here that weren't connected that were still stuck to the print bed. So I needed to make some alterations here, and that's what I did in the final product. And so what you can see here is when you ungroup them, I had to basically add a lot of little tweaks in order to connect different branches to one another, just for stability really. So the little red bits you can see here, which I'm hovering over, I had to kind of add that myself, okay? So there are a lot of little tweaks here. So when I ungrouped it, as you can see, there's a lot of little pieces here that I had to kind of do myself. And I also added the little wedding ring holder bits here. So all I did to do this was I used the sketch tool we used earlier. And again, I used the points to connect different branches together. That's all I did here. And then I resized it to make sure it was the same height as the rest of the tree. Okay guys, so now we've got the final thing done. All we need to do is take our mouse, you drag over it, you click export here, and then you export it as a .stl file. And that should download and you save that to your desktop, okay? And then now we're going to show what we do for the printer. So I use QD Studio for my prints because it has a built-in slicer and it just goes well with the QD +4 printer that I have. So once you've imported it into your slicer, I selected this preset here, which was the extra fine preset, and I'm going to show you a little bit some of these settings here. Like I say, because this was a preset, most of these settings are generic. I think I had to change it to rectilinear in this particular section here, in the infill pattern, and the sparse infill pattern as grid. I can't remember if I had to change that myself or not, but just make sure if you have the same settings that I do on screen, it should turn out absolutely fine. So for my particular model, I didn't need to use any support. I would advise if your printer does allow it not to use support for this, because the little intricate gaps in between the branches, you don't want that to be filled in with any support material that you'd have to then chip off later, because it could damage the branch, because it is quite delicate. So if you can, I'd recommend not using support, and it should be fine without that. And once you're done, you can simply slice the model and then export your G-code to basically print in your printer. Again guys, a very quick recap section. Feel free to pause the video at this point and ensure that you are following the steps, okay? Yeah, so here's a little bit of footage of the actual print itself. So once you've got your G-code, you simply send that to your printer, whether it's wirelessly or whether you have to plug in a USB. It depends on your particular type of printer. and as you can see here, it starts to draw out the top of the tree, and because it's on the extra fine setting, it does it a lot slower at this point, because it needs to be very intricate, and it also wants the, you don't want to catch the material and and have it damaged. So it does look quite good. This is the best part of the process. Doing the 3D modeling side of things is pretty good, but you don't know what it's going to look like when it turns out. And I think this particular footage I took here is one of the first prints that didn't work out well, and as you can see, the top of the branches are all kind of tangled a little bit, and I think that was due to the setting, because I didn't have it on extra fine at the time, or it could have just been the filament. But yeah, as soon as I reprinted it, it turned out okay, and here's here's some footage of the HueForge and the actual print once it was done. Okay guys, so now we're going to show very briefly about the HueForge side of things, okay? So you're going to want to go to Google, type in HueForge, and their website is on the top here. This is one of the only applications in the entire tutorial that you do have to pay for, but like I say, the entry level payment for it is currently only £20. It's gone up a little bit since I last used it. It is becoming more and more popular software. I have one of the commercial licenses, but if you're going to just use it for personal use, you can pay a one-off payment. Well, now it's £19, okay? Once you've downloaded HueForge and you open it, these sections here will be blank, okay? I'm not going to give a very step-by-step tutorial on how to use HueForge, because there's a lot of videos out there and I'm still learning it more myself, and it's quite a complex software to use. So the main thing you need to know is that the PNG image that we created earlier, this stencil image here of Paige and George, before we turned it into an SVG file, the PNG version is what we need to drag and drop into this software. So you just open up your file, you would drag it and you drop it into this section here, and it would automatically color it essentially. The sliders on the bottom here, each different slider represents a different color you can use essentially, and the numbers here is at what layer height it will print to before you need to change to the next color. So as you can see here, I'm only using black and white, okay? It prints black up until layer 3, and then after layer 3, between layer 3 and 5, it prints in white, okay? You don't need to worry too much about all of this for now. Like I say, if you do want to watch a HueForge tutorial, there's plenty of them on YouTube, and they're very long, and so try keep it short for this video. Just to let you know, I printed only 5 layers high. I didn't need to worry about printing too many layers. I didn't need that kind of, I didn't need so many layers essentially. The transmission distance, very briefly, and in layman's terms, it's the ability for the light to travel through the filament, okay? So I don't know if it's a higher or lower transmission distance means less or more light can travel through it. You can quickly Google that, but essentially I've printed a darker layer on bottom and then a brighter layer on top. The transmission distance is again something that each filament has a different transmission distance. You need to kind of buy a special, you can do like seashell tests to check that, or you can buy a special machine for that. But again, for the sake of this tutorial, all I had to do is drag the image in here. All you need to know is that my actual print, my HueForge print, was 5 layers high. I swapped from black to white at layer 3, and then I adjusted the width and height to be the exact same size as my stencil, because this is a little piece on top that we want to glue on top of our main 3D model like I shown earlier, okay? Once you've done this, and once it's the exact same height and width as your stencil one I created earlier, and that's the stencil one without the stand included, by the way, guys. So you go back to Tinkercad and you just measure it, okay? You just hover here, it will tell you what the height is, what the width is, and then you just make sure these values are accurate as well. You can go file, and you can literally just export this STL file, and you can then print it in your slicer, or you can slice it and print it in your in whatever you're using. So again, guys, we're going to do another quick recap here, and feel free to pause the video. I know sometimes I do waffle and it can be a bit confusing, so it's because it's a very complicated software, and trying to explain it is difficult in a short period of time, but feel free to pause the video and hopefully it makes some sense. One of the good things about HueForge as well is that when you do export the STL file, it comes with a little text description which tells you exactly the height, width, and also at what layer to change your filaments, so that's always very handy. So at this point I went back into QD Studio and I imported the HueForge that we had just exported from their software. So this is kind of what it looks like when you first bring it in, and I'm going to show you the settings I had to use. So I've just opened up QD Studio. Again, this version looks a little bit different now because I recorded this section later, because I realized that I didn't actually show the HueForge settings during the point when I recorded earlier. So this section is just to basically show you the settings. I had to create my own preset, and then I had to, so you can do that by changing all your settings, and you just click the save option here and you can name it what you want. So feel free to pause the video at any point, but I'm going to very quickly just run you through the different settings I had here. I'm not going to overwhelm you by talking about them too much in particular, but if in your particular slicer you might want to try and match the name of the setting to what I've got here. You know, each person might do things differently, but yeah, these are my particular HueForge settings. I'm just going to very quickly run you through this. And so again, it's very difficult to kind of squeeze all of this into, you know, a 20-minute tutorial. I'm kind of speeding up a little bit towards the end here, so I hope you're not getting too lost, but I hope by pausing the video and looking at different recaps, you might, you know, have a better understanding. Oh, choking on my voice. So yeah, that's my HueForge settings, and now we're going to go back to the video. Okay guys, so now we're going back to, this is the old version again of QD Studio, but the HueForge settings are exactly the same, okay? So once I had to click my preset, I just click slice, and what you'll see is on the right hand side, where you see the little blue bar, it goes up to layer 5. So I only want to print 5 layers on this, but I still want to stop at layer 3, so I can change it from black to white. So you just you drag the bar down to 3, you right click and you add a pause section, and then you click slice again. And so what that does is when it converts it into a G code, it tells the printer that it needs to stop printing at layer 3 and pause. That allows you to change the color of filament to a different color. So in this instance, I needed to change it from black to white. At the time when I recorded, or when I made this gift, I didn't have the QD box, which now does it automatically for me. So depending on what kind of setup you have, you might have to change it manually, and you can add a pause to do that in the slicer software. So guys, unfortunately I didn't take too much footage of this, because when I actually made these GIFs, I didn't actually intend to make a video at the time, so it was only later, but this is what they both turned out like once I printed them. So the HueForge, as you can see, was on the left here, and then there's the actual 3D model. So all I basically did after that is they both printed off, they both look like this, and all I had to do now was just glue the HueForge one. Literally took a glue stick here, and I just had to glue it over the top of the 3D model, and voila, here we go. This is the final finished product, and yeah, just left it for about 10-20 minutes to dry, and it was all done. So, you know, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and you know, if you did, I know there's points which were rushed. I hope the recaps are a little bit more helpful, but if you did enjoy the video, please drop me a comment. If you do have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but if you go back on the video, I hope there's different points where you can kind of pause it and it makes a little bit more sense. And yeah, I wish you all a very good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.